The clock on the wall read 11:47 p.m. when David finally finished mopping the marble floors of the executive suite. His back ached and his hands were rough from the cleaning chemicals, but he still had 2 more floors to go. Being a single dad meant taking whatever work he could get, and the night shift at Wellington Tower paid just enough to keep the lights on at home. His daughter was probably asleep by now, curled up at his sister's apartment 3 blocks away. She stayed there on the nights he worked late, which was most nights lately. He missed tucking her in, missed hearing about her day at school, missed being the kind of father his late wife would have wanted him to be. But bills didn't pay themselves, and grief didn't excuse responsibility. David pushed his cleaning cart toward the elevator, but something made him stop. Through the glass doors of the main lobby, he could see it, the old piano sitting in the atrium like a forgotten relic. Nobody played it anymore. The building manager had mentioned once that it belonged to the previous owner, some music lover who'd passed away years ago. Now it just collected dust, another thing for David to wipe down during his rounds. But tonight something pulled him toward it. He left his cart by the elevator and walked into the empty lobby. The building was silent except for the hum of the ventilation system and the distant sound of traffic outside. His footsteps echoed on the polished floor as he approached the piano. The bench creaked when he sat down, and he hesitated before lifting the fallboard to reveal the yellowed keys. His fingers touched the keys gently, like greeting an old friend. It had been 3 years since he'd played, 3 years since the accident that took his wife. She'd been the musician in the family, a piano teacher who'd tried for years to teach him. He'd been an average student at best, but she'd been patient. God, she'd been so patient with him. David started playing. The notes came slowly at first, rusty and uncertain, but then muscle memory took over. It was one of her favorite pieces, something simple and beautiful. He'd played it at her funeral, though he could barely see the keys through his tears. Now, alone in this empty building, he let the music fill the space around him. He didn't notice the small figure standing in the shadows near the stairwell. The girl had been sitting on the steps for almost an hour, waiting for her mother's meeting to end. She was 10 years old with dark hair pulled back in a neat ponytail, and she held a white cane loosely in her right hand. Her name was Lily, and she'd been blind since birth, a complication during delivery that the best doctors and all her mother's money couldn't fix. She'd heard piano music before, of course. Her mother had hired 3 different instructors over the years, serious people with impressive credentials who spoke about theory and technique, but they'd all quit within months, saying Lily wasn't focused enough, wasn't disciplined enough, wasn't trying hard enough. The truth was simpler. Lily had never connected with the music. It felt like homework, like another thing she was supposed to master to make her mother proud. But this music was different. This music had feeling in it. Sadness, yes, but also something warm underneath, like sunshine breaking through clouds. The person playing wasn't trying to impress anyone. They were playing because they needed to, because the music meant something. Lily stood up carefully, using her cane to navigate the familiar path from the stairwell to the lobby. She'd been coming to this building since she was little, knew every turn and corner. Her mother, Rebecca Chen, was the CEO of a tech company on the 20th floor, and she practically lived at the office lately. Lily spent a lot of evenings here waiting. The music stopped suddenly. Lily froze, afraid she'd scared whoever was playing. "Hello," a man's voice called out. He sounded surprised but not angry. "Is someone there?" Lily's grip tightened on her cane. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bother you. I was just listening." There was a pause, and then footsteps approached. "You're not bothering me," the man said gently. "I'm David. I work here. I'm the janitor." "Are you lost?" "No," Lily said. "My mom works upstairs. I'm waiting for her." David glanced at his watch. Nearly midnight. What kind of parent kept a kid here this late? But he kept that thought to himself. "That's a long wait. You want to sit down?" Lily nodded, and David noticed the way she moved. Careful but confident, her cane sweeping in small arcs. He realized she was blind and felt a pang of something he couldn't quite name. His daughter was 8, just 2 years younger than this girl, and he couldn't imagine her sitting alone in an office building at midnight. "That was really pretty," Lily said as she made her way toward his voice. "What you were playing." "Just an old song," David said. "My wife used to love it. She has good taste." Lily found the piano bench and sat down at the far end, leaving space between them. "Does she work here too?" "No, she passed away a few years ago." "Oh." Lily's voice got quiet. I'm sorry. They sat in silence for a moment, and then Lily asked, Can you play something else? David smiled despite himself. Sure, any requests? Something happy, something that makes you feel like dancing, even if you can't see where you're going. That was an interesting way to put it. David thought for a moment, then started playing something upbeat, a jazzy tune his wife used to play on Sunday mornings when she made pancakes. His fingers stumbled over a few notes. It had been a long time, but he pushed through. Lily's face lit up. She started swaying slightly, her head bobbing to the rhythm. When David finished, she actually clapped. That was amazing, she said. You're really good. I'm really rusty, David corrected, but he was grinning. He couldn't remember the last time anyone had been excited about his playing. You like music? Lily's smile faded a little. I guess. My mom hired teachers for me, but they all quit. They said I wasn't good at it. That's not how music works, David said firmly. It's not about being good or bad. It's about feeling something. Did you feel something when I was playing? Yes, Lily said immediately. I felt like the notes were telling a story. The first song was sad but also kind of peaceful, like remembering something that hurt but also made you smile. And the second one was like sunshine and like someone laughing. David stared at her. This kid got it, really got it, in a way most people never did. That's exactly right. That's what music is supposed to be. The teachers never said that, Lily said quietly. They just told me I was hitting the wrong keys. Do you want to try? David asked on impulse. Playing, I mean. Lily's head tilted toward him, surprise clear on her face. Really? Why not? It's just us here and I've got time. He moved over on the bench, giving her access to the keys. Lily set her cane aside and scooted closer. Her hands hovered over the piano, hesitant. It's okay, David said. Just press a few keys, any keys. See what sounds you like. Lily's right index finger came down on middle C. The note rang out clear and pure in the empty lobby. She pressed it again, then tried the key next to it. Then another. She wasn't playing anything recognizable, just exploring. But David saw something in her face that made his chest tight. Wonder. Pure. Simple wonder. Here, he said, gently guiding her hand to a simple 3-note pattern. Try this. Do you feel where your fingers are? Lily nodded. David played the pattern once, then guided her through it again. On the third try, she did it herself. I did it, she said, her whole face glowing. You sure did. David checked his watch, 12:20 a.m. He really needed to finish his rounds, but he couldn't bring himself to end this moment. Listen, I work here Tuesday and Thursday nights. If you're ever here again and you want to learn a few things, I'd be happy to show you. Really? Lily's voice was full of hope. You'd teach me? Sure. Can't promise I'm as good as those fancy teachers your mom hired, but I can show you what my wife taught me, how to play from here. He tapped his chest, right over his heart. Lily was quiet for a moment, and then she said, Don't tell my mom, okay? If she knows, she'll make it weird. She'll hire you or fire you or something. Can it just be our secret? David should have said no. He should have insisted on asking permission from the girl's mother. But something in Lily's voice, that fear of losing something precious before she'd even had a chance to enjoy it, made him understand. Our secret, he agreed. High above them, on the 20th floor, Rebecca Chen stood at her office window. She'd come down to get Lily 20 minutes ago and stopped when she heard the piano. Now she watched her daughter sitting at that old instrument, smiling wider than Rebecca had seen in months, and something cracked open inside her chest. She'd given Lily everything money could buy. The best doctors, the best schools, the best opportunities. Everything except the one thing this janitor was giving her right now. Time, attention, and genuine kindness with no agenda attached. Rebecca didn't interrupt. She just watched and wondered when she'd become the kind of mother who had to spy on her own daughter to see her truly happy. 3 weeks passed, and David found himself actually looking forward to Tuesday and Thursday nights. The job was still exhausting, the pay was still barely enough, and he still missed being home with his daughter. But now there was something else, those 2 hours with Lily and the old piano in the empty lobby. She was there every Tuesday and Thursday waiting by the stairwell. Her nanny would drop her off around 10, and she'd sit quietly doing homework until David finished his initial rounds. He tried asking why her Other kept her there so late, but Lily just shrugged and said her mom had important meetings. The way she said it, like she'd accepted it as an unchangeable fact of life, made David's heart hurt. But once they sat down at that piano, everything else faded away. Lily was incredible. Not just talented, David had seen talented kids before. His wife had taught dozens of them. But Lily had something different. She felt the music in a way that couldn't be taught. When David showed her a new piece, she didn't just memorize the notes. She understood what they meant. This part here, she'd say, her fingers resting on the keys. It's supposed to be sadder, right? Like someone's trying not to cry? And she'd be absolutely right. David started bringing his wife's old teaching materials, sheet music, theory books, even some recordings. He'd spent his lunch breaks at the library, learning Braille music notation from a librarian who'd worked with blind students. It wasn't easy. The dots and patterns made his head hurt, and he fumbled through explaining them to Lily. But slowly, clumsily, they figured it out together. "You don't have to do all this," Lily said one night after David had spent 20 minutes trying to transcribe a simple melody into Braille. His fingers were cramped and he'd made at least a dozen mistakes. "I know," David said, flexing his sore hands. "But you deserve to read music, same as anyone else." Nobody had ever said anything like that to Lily before. Her previous teachers had treated her blindness like an obstacle to overcome, a disability that made everything harder. David treated it like just another way of experiencing the world. Different, but not less. The lessons followed a rhythm. David would play a piece first, letting Lily hear it. Then he'd guide her hands through the movements, explaining not just what to play, but why. "Feel how this note leads into the next one? It's like asking a question, and then this one answers it. Music is just a conversation, that's all." Lily soaked it up like a sponge. By the third week, she could play simple melodies. By the fifth week, she was working on a basic classical piece. David had to look up videos online to remember how it went. He'd never been good enough to play it himself, but Lily picked it up faster. Then he could teach it. "You're going to be better than me real soon," he joked one night. "That's not possible," Lily said seriously. "You're the best teacher I've ever had." David went quiet. He thought about those expensive instructors her mother had hired, people with degrees and decades of experience. And here was this kid saying he was the best when all he did was show up and care. "Your other teachers probably knew more than me," he said honestly. "I'm just a guy who loves music." "That's why you're better," Lily said. "They knew about music. You actually love it." There's a difference. She was right, of course. David had loved music since his wife first put his hands on a piano keyboard years ago. He'd never been good enough to play professionally, never had the discipline to practice hours every day. But he'd loved it anyway. Loved the way a simple melody could change his whole mood. Loved the way his wife's eyes would light up when he finally nailed a difficult passage. Now, teaching Lily, he felt close to his wife again. Like she was there in the music, approving, encouraging. Meanwhile, 20 floors above, Rebecca Chen had made watching the lessons part of her nightly routine. She told herself she was being a responsible parent, making sure this stranger wasn't doing anything inappropriate with her daughter. She'd run a background check on David within days of that first lesson. Single father, widowed 3 years ago, no criminal record, worked 2 jobs to support his daughter. Clean as they came. But Rebecca kept watching anyway. She watched David's patience when Lily struggled with a difficult measure, playing it over and over until her small fingers got it right. She watched him bring snacks from home because he'd noticed Lily was always hungry by midnight. She watched him teach her daughter to sit up straight at the piano, not because of posture, but because confident musicians play confident music. And slowly, painfully, Rebecca watched her daughter become someone she barely recognized, someone happy. The change wasn't just about piano. Lily started smiling more even during the day. Her nanny reported that she'd been humming constantly, making up little melodies while she did homework. She seemed lighter somehow, like a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. Rebecca wanted to feel grateful. Instead, she felt jealous. She was Lily's mother. She'd carried her for 9 months, held her during those terrifying first weeks when the doctors weren't sure she'd survive. She'd built an entire company from nothing so Lily would never want for anything. And yet this janitor, this stranger, had given Lily something Rebecca never could. Time, presence, undivided attention. Rebecca worked 16-hour days. She took calls during dinner, answered emails in bed, scheduled meetings at 6 in the morning. She told herself it was for Lily, to give her daughter the best life possible. But watching through that window, she finally admitted the truth. It was for herself. Her own ambition, her own need to prove she could succeed despite every obstacle life threw at her. And Lily had paid the price. One Thursday night, Rebecca made a decision. She'd go down there, she'd interrupt the lesson, thank David for his time, and take over her daughter's education properly. She'd clear her schedule, find the best piano teacher in the city, be there for every lesson. She took the elevator down, her heart pounding. But when the doors opened to the lobby, she heard Lily laughing, actually laughing, and her feet wouldn't move. David had just played something wrong on purpose, a silly, exaggerated mistake that made the melody sound ridiculous. Lily was giggling, her whole body shaking with mirth. "You did that on purpose," she accused. "Prove it," David said, and played it wrong again, even worse this time. "Stop. Play it right." Lily was still laughing. "Only if you play it right first. Show me how it's supposed to go." Lily wiped tears from her eyes and positioned her hands on the keys. Then she played the melody perfectly, every note clear and true. When she finished, David clapped. "See? You didn't need me at all. You already knew it. But it's more fun when you play it wrong first," Lily said. Rebecca stood frozen in the elevator doorway. When was the last time she'd made her daughter laugh like that? When was the last time they'd had fun together, without Rebecca checking her phone or thinking about work? She couldn't remember. The elevator doors started to close and Rebecca let them. She rode back up to her office, sat at her desk, and cried for the first time in years. The lessons continued. David started teaching Lily about different composers, telling her stories about Beethoven's struggles with deafness, about Mozart's childhood performances, about the blues musicians who'd poured their pain into every note. He made music history come alive, turning it into stories rather than facts to memorize. "Why did Beethoven keep composing after he went deaf?" Lily asked one night. "Because the music was still in his head," David said. "He couldn't hear it with his ears anymore, but he could feel it. Just like you can feel a song without seeing the notes." Lily thought about that. "So being blind doesn't mean I can't be a real musician?" David looked at her sharply. "Who told you that?" "Nobody said it exactly, but the other teachers always seemed disappointed, like they were working harder because I couldn't see." "Listen to me," David said firmly. "Some of the greatest musicians in history were blind. They didn't succeed despite their blindness. They succeeded because they heard the world differently, felt things others missed. Your blindness isn't a weakness, Lily. It's just part of who you are." No one had ever told her that before. The doctors had always framed her blindness as a tragedy, something to compensate for. Her mother threw money at specialists and therapies trying to fix something that couldn't be fixed. But David just accepted it, acknowledged it, and moved on to what really mattered: the music. "I want to compose something," Lily said suddenly. "My own song. Is that allowed?" David smiled. "Of course it's allowed. Music isn't about following rules. It's about expressing yourself." So they started working on Lily's composition. She'd play little melodic ideas, and David would help her develop them, showing her how to build a song from scattered notes. She called it "Song for the Stars I've Never Seen," and it was beautiful, simple but haunting, full of longing and hope. David recorded it on his phone, playing it back for her so she could hear how it sounded. "You made that," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "That's yours. You're a composer now." Lily's smile could have lit up the entire building. But while Lily was blooming, David was struggling. His landlord had raised the rent and his second job cut his hours. He started skipping meals, telling himself he'd eat later, then forgetting until his stomach ached. His daughter needed new shoes and the doctor said she needed glasses, another expense he couldn't afford. He never told Lily. What would be the point? She was a kid, and her joy in learning piano was pure and uncomplicated. He wouldn't burden her with his problems, but Rebecca saw it. She noticed his clothes getting looser, the shadows under his eyes deepening. She noticed he brought less food to share with Lily, claiming he'd eaten earlier. She noticed the careful way he walked, like someone whose feet hurt from standing too long, and she felt ashamed. Here was this man, barely scraping by, giving her daughter hours of his time and asking nothing in return. Meanwhile, Rebecca had more money than she could spend, and she'd never once thought to pay him. To help him, to even acknowledge what he was doing, she drafted an email a dozen times, offers of payment, of official employment, of gratitude, but she never sent them. Something held her back. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was fear that money would change things, would turn David's genuine kindness into a transaction. Or maybe she just wasn't ready to admit she needed help raising her own daughter. So the lessons continued. Tuesday and Thursday nights, the janitor and the CEO's daughter, making music in an empty building while the woman who should have been there watched from 20 floors above. David stared at the eviction notice taped to his apartment door, the words blurring together. 30 days. He had 30 days to come up with 2 months' back rent plus late fees, or he and his daughter would be out on the street. He pulled the notice down and stuffed it in his pocket before his sister could see it. She was inside watching his daughter, and the last thing he needed was her worried questions. She'd offered to help, of course, but she was barely making ends meet herself. He couldn't take money from her. "You okay?" his sister asked when he walked in. She was always too observant. "Fine, just tired." It wasn't a lie. He was beyond tired. He was running on fumes, working the night shift at Wellington Tower, picking up weekend shifts at a warehouse, sleeping maybe 4 hours a night. His body ached constantly and he'd started getting dizzy spells. But Tuesday was coming, and that meant seeing Lily. That meant music. That was the only thing keeping him going. When Tuesday finally arrived, David almost called in sick. His head was pounding and he'd thrown up twice that morning. But he thought about Lily waiting by the stairwell, her face falling when he didn't show up, and he dragged himself to work. He made it through his initial cleaning rounds on autopilot. Vacuum the carpets. Empty the trash. Wipe down the bathrooms. Don't think about the notice in your pocket. Don't think about your daughter's school field trip you can't afford. Don't think about the fact that you're one emergency away from complete disaster. Just get to the piano. Just get to Lily. She was there, as always, sitting on the bottom step with her backpack beside her. She smiled when she heard his footsteps. "Hi, David. I've been practicing the new piece you gave me. I think I almost have it." David tried to smile back, but his face felt tight. "That's great. Let's hear it." They walked to the piano together, and Lily immediately launched into the piece. She'd been working on something more complicated lately, a classical composition that would challenge even an experienced player, and she was nailing it, her fingers moving confidently across the keys, her timing nearly perfect. But David couldn't focus. The notes seemed to come from far away, and the room kept tilting slightly. He gripped the edge of the piano bench, trying to steady himself. "How was that?" Lily asked when she finished. "Beautiful," David managed. "Really beautiful. But you're rushing a little in the middle section. Let me show you." He reached for the keys, and suddenly the room spun violently. David lurched forward, catching himself on the piano with both hands. The keys made a discordant crash. "David?" Lily's voice was worried. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine. Just give me a second." But he wasn't fine. The edges of his vision were going dark, and his heart was racing. When was the last time he'd eaten? Yesterday morning? He couldn't remember. "You don't sound fine," Lily said. She stood up, her hand reaching out to find his arm. "You're shaking. I just need to sit down." David slid off the bench onto the floor, his back against the piano. The cool tile felt good against his overheated skin. Lily crouched beside him, her face creased with concern. "Should I get my mom?" "She's upstairs." "No." The word came out too sharp, and David forced himself to breathe. "No, don't worry her. I'll be okay in a minute." But Lily was already standing, her hand fumbling for her phone. David had never seen her use it before. Some expensive model with accessibility features that read everything aloud. "Lily, wait." She ignored him, her fingers swiping across the screen with practiced ease. "Hi, it's me," she said when someone answered. "Something's wrong with David, the janitor. He's sick or something." "We're in the lobby." David closed his eyes. So much for keeping everything separate. 2 minutes later, Rebecca Chen stepped out of the elevator, her heels clicking sharply on the marble floor. David tried to stand, but his legs wouldn't cooperate. "Stay down," Rebecca said. Her voice clipped and professional. She crouched in front of him, her expensive suit probably worth more than his monthly rent. "When did you last eat?" "I'm fine." That wasn't the question. Her eyes were sharp, taking in his hollow cheeks, his too loose clothes, the tremor in his hands. "When did you last eat a full meal?" David didn't answer. Rebecca pulled out her phone. I'm calling an ambulance. No! David finally found the strength to grab her wrist. Please, I can't afford it. I'll be fine. Just need food and rest. Rebecca stared at him for a long moment. Then she stood and made a different call. Security? This is Ms. Chen. I need you to bring up a meal from the executive dining room. Something substantial. And orange juice. Yes, now. She ended the call and looked down at David. You're going to eat. Then we're going to talk. Mom, Lily said quietly. She was still standing there, her hands twisted together. Is David going to be okay? Rebecca's expression softened when she looked at her daughter. He'll be fine, sweetheart. He just needs to take better care of himself. The security guard arrived with food, a full plate of pasta, bread, and a large glass of orange juice. Rebecca watched David like a hawk as he ate, making sure he didn't rush and make himself sick. The food helped. By the time he'd finished, the dizziness had faded and he could think clearly again. Thank you, he said quietly. Don't thank me yet. Rebecca sat on the piano bench, her posture rigid. How long have you been giving my daughter piano lessons? There it was. The question David had been dreading. About 2 months. And you never thought to ask my permission? David glanced at Lily, who looked miserable. She asked me not to tell you. I should have insisted. I'm sorry. Rebecca was quiet for a moment. Then she said, show me. What? Show me what you've been teaching her. Rebecca gestured at the piano. Lily, play something for me. Lily's face went pale. Mom, I don't think... Please. There was something in Rebecca's voice that made Lily move to the piano. She sat down carefully, her hands hovering over the keys. What do you want to hear? Whatever you've been working on. Lily took a breath and started playing. It was the complex classical piece David had given her, and she played it beautifully. Her fingers moved with confidence, her whole body swaying slightly with the music. She missed a few notes. She was nervous, but the emotion was there. The feeling that made music more than just sounds. When she finished, Rebecca was very quiet. There's more. Lily said softly, I wrote something, my own song. Do you want to hear it? Rebecca nodded, not trusting her voice. Lily played Song for the Stars I've Never Seen, the composition she'd worked on with David. It was simple, but achingly beautiful, full of longing and hope and a kind of bittersweet joy. Every note was her own creation, her voice expressed through piano keys. When the last note faded, Rebecca stood abruptly and walked to the window. Her shoulders were shaking. Mom? Lily's voice was small, scared. You're incredible, Rebecca said, her words choked. You're absolutely incredible, and I had no idea. She turned around, and David saw tears streaming down her face. This powerful CEO who commanded boardrooms and negotiated million-dollar deals was crying in front of a janitor and her daughter. I've been watching, Rebecca admitted, from my office. I've seen every lesson for the past 6 weeks. Lily's mouth fell open. You have? I told myself I was being protective, making sure you were safe. But really I was watching because... Rebecca's voice broke. Because I'd never seen you that happy before. And I realized I had no idea how to give that to you myself. She looked at David. You've given my daughter something precious. Not just piano lessons, you've given her confidence, joy, a love of music that no expensive instructor could teach. And you did it while working yourself half to death. David didn't know what to say. Rebecca wiped her eyes, composing herself. I want to hire you, officially as Lily's music teacher. A real salary, health insurance, flexible hours so you can actually take care of yourself. Mom, Lily started. I know you wanted this to be your secret, Rebecca said gently. But look at him, Lily. He's making himself sick trying to do everything. We can't let that continue. David shook his head. I didn't teach her for money. I know. That's exactly why I'm offering it. Rebecca's voice was firm. You've been giving freely and it's destroying you. Let me pay you what you're worth. Let me help you the way you've helped my daughter. But then it won't be the same, Lily said. It'll be like all the other teachers. Professional and stiff and not real. It'll be different because David will still be David, Rebecca said. The only thing that changes is that he can afford to eat regular meals. She had a point. David thought about his daughter, about the eviction notice, about the constant grinding worry that kept him up at night. He thought about being able to take Lily to a real music school, to G. I've her the education she deserved. But he also thought about why he'd started teaching her in the first place. Because she'd looked at that piano with wonder, and he'd wanted to share something beautiful with her. Would money change that? I need to think about it, David said finally. Rebecca nodded. Fair enough. But in the meantime, you're taking the rest of the week off, and security is going to deliver meals to your apartment. Don't argue, it's already arranged. David wanted to argue anyway, wanted to insist he didn't need charity. But the truth was he did need help. He'd been drowning for months, too proud to admit it. Thank you, he said quietly. After Rebecca left, Lily sat down next to David. They were both quiet for a moment. I'm sorry, Lily said. I shouldn't have called her, but you scared me. You did the right thing, David assured her. I wasn't taking care of myself. So are you going to take her offer? About being my real teacher? David looked at the piano, at this instrument that had brought him back to life after losing his wife. What do you want? I want you to be okay, Lily said simply. I want you to stop being sad and tired all the time. If my mom paying you makes that happen, then I want that. But I don't want it to become like homework. Like something we have to do instead of something we want to do. It won't, David promised. Music is still music, whether someone's paying me to teach it or not. That doesn't change. You promise? I promise. 20 floors up, Rebecca stood at her window watching the city lights blur through her tears. She'd built an empire, commanded respect from hundreds of employees, negotiated deals worth millions, but she'd failed at the one thing that mattered most, being present for her daughter. That was going to change. Starting now, Rebecca was going to figure out how to be a mother, a real one, not just a provider, but a presence. Even if she had to learn from a janitor who played piano in empty lobbies and taught blind girls to see the world through music. David stared at the flyer in his hands, his heart pounding. The Wellington Community Recital, held every year in the building's small auditorium. Local musicians, students, anyone who wanted to perform. He'd walked past these flyers dozens of times during his night shifts, never thinking twice about them. Until now. He'd accepted Rebecca's offer 3 weeks ago. The money had changed everything. He'd paid his back rent, bought his daughter new shoes and glasses, even started eating 3 meals a day. But more than that, he had time now. Time to sleep, time to be with his daughter, time to teach Lily properly. The lessons had moved to early evenings. In a practice room Rebecca had set up on the 20th floor. It was beautiful. Soundproofed walls, a professional grand piano, and space for Lily to move around freely. David still missed the old upright in the lobby, missed the intimacy of those late-night sessions. But Lily was thriving, and that was what mattered. She'd gotten so good. In just 4 months, she'd progressed further than David would have thought possible. She played with technical skill now, yes, but more importantly, she played with soul. Every piece was infused with emotion. With her unique voice as a musician, she was ready for this. Ready to share her gift with the world. What do you think? David asked, showing Lily the flyer during their session. The recital's in 2 weeks. I think you should perform. Lily's hand stilled on the keys. Perform? In front of people? Yes, real people. An audience. David kept his voice casual, but his heart was racing. This felt important, like a moment that would define something. I don't know, Lily said slowly. What if I mess up? Then you mess up. That's part of performing. But Lily, you have something special. Other people deserve to hear it. What would I play? Your song. Song for the stars I've never seen. And maybe one classical piece, your choice. Lily was quiet for a long moment, her fingers drumming nervously on her thighs. Would you be there? Front row, I promise. And my mom. That was the question, wasn't it? Rebecca had been trying, she really had. She'd started leaving work earlier, having dinner with Lily most nights, asking about her day. But she still struggled with showing up emotionally, with being present in the way Lily needed. I don't know, David said honestly, but even if she can't make it, you should still do this. For yourself. Lily took a deep breath and nodded. Okay, let's do it. David signed her up that night, his hand shaking slightly as he filled out the form. Student name, Lily Chen. Performance pieces. Original composition and Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. First movement. Teacher, David Torres. He didn't tell Rebecca. Some part of him wanted this to be a surprise, a gift. He wanted her to see what her daughter had become, not through a window from 20 floors up, but sitting in an audience with everyone else. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of practice and preparation. Lily worked tirelessly, perfecting every phrase, every dynamic. She practiced until her fingers ached, until she could play both pieces in her sleep. David coached her not just on technique but on stage presence. How to walk to the piano confidently, how to bow, how to own the moment. Remember, he told her the night before the recital, the audience isn't there to judge you. They're there to experience something beautiful. You're giving them a gift. Lily nodded, but he could see the nerves in her face. You've got this, David said firmly. I believe in you. The day of the recital, David took his daughter shopping. He'd been saving money from his new salary, and for the first time in years, he could afford something nice. They found a simple blue dress at a department store, nothing fancy but pretty and appropriate. It fit Lily perfectly. At home, David opened his safe and took out a small jewelry box. Inside was his late wife's pearl bracelet, the one she'd worn to every performance when she was alive. He'd been saving it for his daughter, but somehow, this felt right. He called Lily's nanny and asked if she could bring Lily by his apartment that afternoon. When Lily arrived, David could hear the nervousness in her voice. Is everything okay? Why did you want to see me before the recital? I have something for you, David said. Sit down. He placed the bracelet in her hands, guiding her fingers over the smooth pearls. This belonged to my wife. She wore it whenever she performed. I want you to wear it tonight, Lily's breath caught. David, I can't. This is too precious. Which is exactly why I want you to have it. For tonight, at least. It's for good luck. He helped her fasten it around her wrist. There, perfect. Lily threw her arms around him, squeezing tight. Thank you. For everything. For teaching me, for believing in me, for being... She trailed off. For being what? For being here, she finished quietly. The recital was scheduled for 7 p.m. in Wellington Tower's small auditorium. David arrived early with his daughter, both of them dressed in their best. They found seats in the front row, right in the center. David's daughter was excited. She loved music too, thanks to her mother, and she'd been practicing piano herself lately. Is this the girl you've been teaching? His daughter whispered as other people filed in. Yeah. Wait until you hear her play. The auditorium filled slowly. Local families, music students, building employees who'd seen the flyers. About 50 people total, a small but respectable crowd. David scanned the audience but didn't see Rebecca. His heart sank a little. Lily had tried to play it cool, but he knew she'd been hoping her mother would come. Backstage, Lily stood with the other performers, her white cane folded beside her. The performance order had been drawn randomly, and she was 4th out of 12. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. You okay, sweetie? Asked one of the other mothers, a kind woman whose son was performing a violin piece. Just nervous, Lily admitted. That's normal. What are you playing? An original composition. And some Beethoven. The woman's eyebrows rose. Impressive. How long have you been playing? About 4 months. 4 months. But that's... The woman trailed off, reassessing. 4 months was nothing, especially for the difficult pieces Lily had chosen. She must have thought Lily was joking. The recital began. The first performer was a teenage boy who played guitar, competently but nervously, rushing through his piece. The second was a woman in her 60s, who sang an operatic aria with a wobbly but earnest voice. The third was a young girl who played a simple piano piece, her tiny fingers carefully pressing each key. Then it was Lily's turn. Next up, we have Lily Chen performing an original composition, followed by Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. First movement, the announcer said. Lily stood, grabbed her cane and made her way to the stage. David held his breath as she walked across the platform. She'd practiced this, counting steps, feeling for the piano bench. But doing it in front of 50 strangers was different. She made it perfectly. Setting her cane aside, she sat at the piano and took a moment to center herself. Her hands rested on the keys and she took a deep breath. Then she began to play. Song for the Stars I've Never Seen filled the auditorium, and the room went absolutely still. It was a simple melody, not technically complex, but it was beautiful. Hauntingly, achingly beautiful. Every note carried emotion, told a story of longing and wonder and acceptance. This was a girl who'd never seen a star but could imagine them so vividly that her music painted them in the air. David felt tears prick his eyes. His daughter gripped his hand, completely mesmerized. When Lily finished her original piece, there was a moment of absolute silence. Then the applause began, not polite golf claps, but genuine, enthusiastic applause. People were smiling, some wiping their eyes, but Lily wasn't done. Without pausing, she transitioned into the Moonlight Sonata. Her hands moved across the keys with confidence now, the nervousness burned away by the success of her first piece. She played Beethoven like she'd been born to it, bringing out the melancholy beauty of the famous melody, the steady triplet rhythm like waves lapping at a shore. She was flawless. Not a single missed note, not a moment of hesitation. For someone who'd been playing less than 5 months, it was extraordinary. For anyone at any level, it was moving. In the back of the auditorium, hidden behind a pillar, Rebecca Chen stood with her hand pressed to her mouth, tears streaming down her face. She'd meant to tell Lily she was coming. She'd cleared her schedule, prepared herself to be there openly as a proper mother should. But at the last minute, fear had gripped her. What if Lily didn't want her there? What if her presence made Lily nervous? What if she ruined this moment somehow? So she'd hidden instead, watching her daughter perform for the first time, and hating herself for not being brave enough to sit in that audience like David and his daughter. Like all the other proud parents, but oh, her daughter was incredible. Lily finished the sonata, her hands lifting from the keys with graceful finality. The auditorium erupted in applause, louder this time, people standing, some actually cheering. Lily stood and bowed, a smile breaking across her face like sunshine. "Bravo!" David shouted from the front row. "Bravo!" Lily's smile grew wider. She'd done it. She'd actually done it. Backstage afterward, people swarmed Lily with compliments and questions. How long had she been playing? Who was her teacher? Would she be performing again? The kind woman from earlier apologized for doubting her, saying it was the most beautiful performance she'd ever seen from a young musician. David made his way backstage, his daughter in tow. When Lily heard his voice, she broke away from the crowd and found him, throwing her arms around his waist. "I did it. Did you hear? I actually did it!" "You were perfect," David said, his voice thick with emotion. "Absolutely perfect. I'm so proud of you. I couldn't have done it without you." "Yes, you could have. This was all you, Lily. Your talent, your hard work, your courage." His daughter tugged on his sleeve. "Dad, there's a lady over there who keeps looking at us." "She's crying." David turned and saw Rebecca standing at the edge of the backstage area, half hidden by the curtain. Their eyes met and he saw everything in her face: pride, regret, love, shame. "Lily," David said gently, "there's someone here to see you." Lily tilted her head. "Who?" "Your mom." Lily went very still. "She came?" "She's been here the whole time." Rebecca stepped forward, her expensive heels clicking on the wooden floor. When she spoke, her voice was shaking. "Lily, sweetheart?" "Mom?" Lily's voice was small, uncertain. "You were here? You watched?" "Every second." Rebecca knelt in front of her daughter, taking her hands, the hands that had just created such beauty. "You were magnificent. You are magnificent, and I'm so sorry it took me this long to really see you." Lily's face crumpled, and suddenly she was crying, years of loneliness and longing pouring out. Rebecca pulled her close, holding her daughter for the first time in what felt like forever, and whispered apologies and promises and love into her hair. David stepped back, giving them space. His daughter smiled up at him, squeezing his hand. "That's beautiful," she whispered. "It was. It really was, but the night wasn't over yet. There were still 8 more performers, still more music to share. And somewhere in that auditorium, someone else was learning that music had the power to transform not just performers and audiences, but families, relationships, entire lives, all because a janitor had decided to play piano in an empty lobby one night, and a blind girl had stopped to listen. The Monday after the recital, David arrived at Wellington Tower expecting everything to be the same. He'd go up to the 20th floor, meet Lily for her lesson, teach for a couple of hours, then head home to his daughter. It was a good routine, a stable routine, the first stability he'd had in years. But when he stepped off the elevator, Rebecca was waiting for him. "David," she said, her voice serious. "Can we talk in my office?" His stomach dropped. Here it was, the moment when she'd tell him his services were no longer needed. that she'd found a real teacher now, someone with credentials and experience. He'd gotten Lily this far, but now it was time for professionals. Of course, he said, following her down the hall. Rebecca's office was impressive. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, expensive furniture, walls lined with awards and framed articles about her company. She gestured for him to sit, but she remained standing looking out at the skyline. "I've been doing a lot of thinking since Saturday night," she began. "About Lily, about myself, about what kind of mother I've been. Ms. Chen, Rebecca, please. And let me finish." She turned to face him. "I built this company from nothing. I worked 80-hour weeks, sacrificed everything, told myself it was all for Lily. So she'd have opportunities, security, a future. But watching her perform, seeing how she'd transformed under your teaching, I realized something." She paused, her voice catching. "I gave her everything except what she actually needed. Time, attention, someone who saw her as a person, not a project to manage. You gave her that. A janitor working 2 jobs, barely scraping by, gave my daughter more than I ever did with all my money and resources." David didn't know what to say. Rebecca sat down across from him. "You could have asked for payment from the beginning. You could have leveraged your position. Pay me or I stop teaching her. But you didn't. You taught her because you wanted to, because you saw something special in her and wanted to help it grow. That's not something money can buy." "I just did what anyone would do," David said quietly. "No. You did what I should have done but didn't, and now I want to do something about it." Rebecca pulled out a folder and slid it across the desk. "I'm establishing a music program. Free lessons for kids who can't afford them, right here in this building. We're converting the entire ground floor. Practice rooms, performance space, instruments, everything." David opened the folder, scanning the architectural plans. It was ambitious, comprehensive, beautiful. "I want you to run it," Rebecca said. "Not just teach Lily, but build something bigger. Create the kind of program where music isn't just for kids whose parents can afford expensive private lessons, where talent matters more than money." David's hands shook as he held the papers. "Rebecca, I'm not qualified for this. I don't have a degree in music education. You're just the person who taught my blind daughter to play Beethoven in 4 months. You're just the person who helped her compose her own music, find her voice, believe in herself. You're exactly who should run this program. David, your lack of formal credentials isn't a weakness, it's why you'll be able to connect with kids the way other teachers can't. I don't know what to say. Say yes. Build this with me. Let's create something that matters." Rebecca's eyes were bright with purpose. "My company's doing well now. The deal I've been working on for months finally came through. I have resources, David. Let me use them for something good." David thought about all the kids like him who'd loved music but never had the chance to pursue it seriously. Kids who couldn't afford lessons, who didn't have parents with the time or money to nurture their talent. Kids who might give up on their dreams before they even started. He thought about his late wife, who'd spent her life teaching music because she believed everyone deserved access to beauty. "Okay," he said, his voice rough. "Yes, let's do it." Rebecca smiled, really smiled, for the first time since he'd met her. "Good. We'll start construction next week. In the meantime, I need you to do something else." "What?" "Teach me." Rebecca's voice went soft, almost vulnerable. "Teach me to play. I want to learn the song Lily composed so we can play it together. I want to understand this thing that's brought her so much joy. I want to connect with my daughter the way you did." David saw the fear in her eyes, the uncertainty. This powerful CEO was terrified of failing at something, of not being good enough. He understood that feeling intimately. "It won't be easy," he warned. "Learning piano as an adult is hard and you're going to be terrible at first. I've built a company from scratch. I think I can handle being bad at piano." Rebecca's jaw set with determination. "When do we start?" "Today, if you want. Right after Lily's lesson," and so it began. David taught Lily in the afternoon, watched her continue to blossom and grow. Then he taught Rebecca in the evening, guiding her clumsy fingers through basic scales and simple melodies. She was terrible, just as he'd predicted. Impatient, frustrated, used to mastering things quickly through sheer force of will. But she kept showing up. Every single day Rebecca practiced. Her fingers stumbled over notes, her timing was off. She wanted to throw things when she couldn't get a passage right. But she persisted. "Why is this so hard?" she complained one evening, 3 weeks into lessons. Lily made it look easy. Lily didn't make it look easy. She worked incredibly hard, and she still works hard every day. You just never saw those hours of practice, those moments of frustration. David demonstrated the phrase she was struggling with. Music isn't about being naturally talented. It's about showing up even when it's difficult. Rebecca tried again. And